Hello, hello, hello. This is your girl, Dr. Rhonda M. Lawson, and I am back from vacation and I am ready to rock. And I have with me in the studio right now a man who's going to help you to save money and get ready for your financial future if you've not started yet. And then later on in the show, we're going to have Dr. Velma Bagby, and she's going to be talking about the catch that nobody wants. You know, you know how when you go fishing and then you catch that fish that it's not going to do you any good. It's too small to eat and it's just going to sit there. So you wind up just throwing it back. She's going to talk about that. So, but before we get to her, let's go ahead and welcome Mr. Jay Kolenky all the way from the DMV. I'm saying all the way like I'm not down the street from you.
Awesome, awesome. Hey, thank you so much for having me on, Dr. Rhonda. And, hello to all the viewers and listeners. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. I'm excited.
Well, I'm excited to have you. Now, when I first met you, and I tell people all the time, every once in a while, I have somebody on the show who's not necessarily an author, but they have good information that they need to share. And what better to share it with than a reader community because we're used to doing our research.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I'm not an author yet, but definitely attended one of your meetings some weeks ago
Yes.
that shed a lot of light and insight on how I can start that process. So that's definitely been a goal of mine. So I will be a future author. I'm speaking that into existence. But
Amen. Speak it into existence. Yes.
absolutely, yes, man. So yeah, there is a lot of things I definitely do want to share. But I'll kind of let you do what you do.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and start. What exactly do you do?
Yeah, well, I'm basically, you could think of me as a financial consultant. So, what I'm doing is pretty much sharing information with families, business owners, even single people on ways they can make and save money,
Hmm.
and especially how money works.
Yeah.
Because school, at least for me, I can't speak for everybody, school has not taught me how money works, where to start, what to do, what to look out for.
Hmm.
So that's pretty much what I'm doing now. And sometimes I have to pinch myself and be like, "Wow, you're really doing this. This is really your new career. Okay, awesome. Hey,
Well, it's a blessing when you're doing something that you absolutely love to do.
yes, you're right. It's become a passion. I mean, in the beginning, I was just checking it out. I've only been doing it for a little over 3 years, but
Okay.
it's grown on me and it's always intrigued me as far as like the stock market. Like, you see movies, you see cartoons, and you see stuff, and it's like, wow, that's so interesting. How does that
Right.
work? But to actually have a place where they taught me um, that was very, very much helpful in my journey so far. And I'm learning every day as we all do, but nowhere near where I will be. I will say that.
Okay. And that just means that you recognize that you have growth and that you're still working toward it.
Yes, there's always new information. Technology is always changing, so you always have to adapt and stay sharp, stay up with the new trends and things that's going on, and just you always have to be open to what's out there because
Absolutely.
the world is changing so fast. It's ridiculous.
Oh, it absolutely is. And I guess that brings me to my next question is you mentioned people should understand how money works. And in this ever-changing world, that statement becomes even more valuable. But what
Right.
exactly does that mean? Because most people, I'm not going to say most people, there are a lot of people out there who they want to make as much money as they can. And they feel like in order to make all of that money, they have to work. And so they spend their
Right.
entire lives with their main job and then maybe their side job, and then they have another hustle
Right.
that they do, and they figure that's the way to amass wealth. So, can you talk a little bit about what you've learned about how money works and whether that way of thinking is the right way of thinking?
Well, I always like to say, if you or any of your viewers ever heard of Robert Kiyosaki, or Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Yes.
he talks about the cash flow quadrant. So, if you're familiar with that, the left side, or so cash flow quadrant or four ways to make income. So the left side talks about working a job or being self-employed.
Mm,
So for me, that's all I knew. Working a job, and once I did first get into business, I was actually a photographer and in music as well. So I was actually self-employed, and that's all I knew. Now, once I got involved with what I'm doing now, I realized there's a whole nother world. There's a whole nother side. Either being a business owner, owning a system where people work for you, or you can pretty much have your money working for you, or like investing. So I'm on that side now. Again, I'm nowhere near where I will be, but it's a way of thinking. It's a way to look at money or look at
right,
time
right.
as well. So that and that's how wealthy people look at it. Wealthy people are not trading time for money. So they have all the time and they have all the money. So
Well, see,
once
here's the I'm not going to say it's a problem because I absolutely agree with you. But
Mhm.
when a person is in a family where the
Right,
family only knows the way to make money is to work hard and to keep working, and
right,
then somebody comes along and says that they have a great investment idea, nobody's trying to hear it because to them that's just another get rich quick scheme, and they think it's a waste of time and it's going to take away from them going to work. So it's a mindset that winds up perpetuating itself over and over and over again. So how do you
it's
break
true.
free from that?
How do you break free is, for me at least, everyone's different, of course, but for me, I started part time. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, when I got involved, I was doing 4 to 5 different things. I was going in school en route to get my master's, but I still carved out time. I was already working overnight and during the day, but I carved out a little bit of time, at least 2 hours a day, and I started to plug in. I started to learn and understand what my mentors were talking about because hey, it sounded great, but
Right.
all I knew prior to 2019 was work, go to school, and that's it. As far as making money and things like that, so I just started learning little by little, um, part time, set my own schedule, and it started to really make sense. And I started to stop thinking that business is so risky. I stopped thinking, oh my gosh, what if this goes wrong? I started to think, but what if it goes right?
Right. Right. But then how do you know what is going to be something that might just be a pipe dream versus something that's really going to be lucrative?
Well, I looked around, at people who work 30, 40, 50 years for, a company, not knocking that,
Mhm.
but I've seen that and I've seen the outcome, and that's not what I wanted for me and my future kids. So when I got introduced to what I'm doing now, it made total sense for my true goals, my true dreams, that pretty much got swallowed up or covered. Once you're in high school, at some point, like high school, middle school, it's like you stop in a way dreaming.
Mm.
Maybe your teachers, because I remember being in elementary school, you could be an astronaut, you could be the next president, all those types of big goals and dreams. But at some point, it's like, okay, so Jay, wake up. You're not going to the moon. You know, there's a McDonald's around the street. There's a KFC, a CVS. What are you really gonna do? So at some point, adults really stop dreaming. And um, when the pandemic hit, it shook my world up, and I realized, whoa, Jay, maybe this is a sign. Maybe God is trying to tell you something. You're working 4 or 5 different things. You're in school again. I took a year off after graduating in my bachelor's undergrad, and I decided after a year to go back because what else did I know?
Right, right.
But I did start what I started now part time, and I said, you know what? Let me give this an honest try, like I gave school and working for other people an honest try. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I tried it. So to sort of answer your question, I've tried all these different things and I didn't really like the results.
Mm-hmm.
So I told myself I'll give this an honest try, and also helping people too. That's the other part too. So that's what I would say.
So, how do you help people? Are you bringing people onto a team?
Well, one aspect is bringing them onto a team, allowing them to either make part-time income working from home or working from Wi-Fi, setting their own schedule,
Mm-hmm.
or if they want to transition part full time, like I did, that's their choice. But that's like an agent route. For my clients, I'm actually teaching them how money works and actually utilizing the licenses that I do have to help their family accomplish their goals. So it depends on which side somebody may fall in, but I'm just here to help people in the ways that it, to accomplish their goals, pretty much.
Okay. Well, so what are three ways that people can maybe start trying to work their way toward their goals? Well, first they have to set goals. And now,
Yeah.
I've heard some people say that when you set a goal and you can see exactly how to get there, you're not dreaming big enough. And I've
Mm.
heard other people say that if you set a goal, they should be goals that you can easily get to, so you don't feel discouraged. So, what? How do you look at goals?
Well, it's funny because this morning I heard something very powerful. GPS. So the G is goal. What are your goals? Then
Mm-hmm.
P, plan. Okay, what's your plan to get to those goals? And then S, schedule. Okay, what is your schedule? What will be the allotted time to actually take action on that plan to hit your goal? So it's funny. I literally heard that today, and that's what it is. I mean, what are you trying to do? How are you going to do that? And pretty much, when are you going to do that? When are you going to work on it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and yes, I feel like we all have goals that are big and crazy. But I heard that if you're, like you said, if your goal doesn't scare you, then you're not dreaming big enough.
Right.
But you still should have attainable goals. Like, let's say small attainable goals that you can hit maybe in a day or maybe in an hour, you know. But the overarching long term goal may be something so big it's scary. Um, but taking those little steps will get you there. So, just break it down, break your goal down.
Yeah. Now, normally when I'm coaching people with about writing, I will tell them that they should, they do want to have a overarching goal. Maybe
Right,
their overarching goal is to publish a book, but
right.
you can't go from 0 to 100 in one day, basically. So I
Yeah,
usually tell them that they may have to set many goals for themselves. Maybe start with a page a day and then eventually go to 2 pages a day and then
right.
maybe 5 pages a day. And then eventually, once you get into the swing of things, you can continue to increase your goal until you're done with your book. So I'm
Right.
wondering if that works the same way in the financial realm.
Well, I honestly feel it does. Well, for me, it did because it was totally brand new and it was like a foreign, it was like Chinese to me in the
Hmm.
beginning. So I needed to break it down. I needed to take it in bites and
Right.
understand little by little. And even with the book, I mean, I started with an outline. So I have done that so far. So I am learning something. Um, so I I would agree with what you just said. Or I would say yes, it's the same where you want to take it little by little. At least that's
Mhm.
what I did. Some people, if this industry is somewhat familiar, you may be able to go full speed ahead head first. But I needed to take it in bites and pieces and think about it and really see if it was for me. But then again, we're all adults here. Money is for us. So I do need to be educated on money as a black male in America. So let's be honest. We all see what inflation is doing. So I mean, I think finances for everybody should be for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So you talked a lot about setting goals, um,
Hmm.
a little bit about how money works,
Hmm.
um, and then you mentioned your clients and you mentioned agents. But have you actually said exactly what it is that you do?
Well, it's general. Yes, everything I've said is pretty general. Um, so there's things I could share with people like concepts that aren't really taught in school,
Okay,
like the rule of 72, for example, which is pretty much it's like a formula, and it tells somebody how long it'll take your money to double based on the interest rate, right? So if you divide your interest rate into the number 72,
mm-hmm.
72 divided by your interest rate, that number you get is how many years it'll take your money to double in that account. So
Interesting.
it really is.
And how
And
can we
when
find more information on that?
you can Google it, you can look at um it's also called compound interest by Albert Einstein as well. But I
Okay.
think looking at it from that aspect pretty much makes it relevant to you and your situation.
Mm-hmm.
And once you do know once you do know how long it'll take your money to double, then you can start asking yourself, well, at age such and such, I'll have X amount of dollars. Is that enough
Right.
for me to comfortably retire?
Right.
If it's not, then that's where somebody like me can show you different investment vehicles, maybe an annuity, maybe an IRA, a mutual fund. There's a bunch of different products out there, but it's all about a custom strategy for that specific person, what they're actually looking for.
Okay. So, how can people get in touch with you if they want more information on this, or at least on
Well,
how to maybe work with you so they can set their own financial goals?
Absolutely. So on Facebook, Jay, and then my middle initial Kolenky. That's on Facebook. And on Instagram, Jay_fam underscore 1ST or JFam first.
All
So
right.
you can contact me. You can ask questions. You can seek information. Also, this other number right here, 202-656-5047. You can call, text, all this information I'm giving is free information. You don't have to pay for this information.
Well, we like free.
Who doesn't?
Okay, so I'm putting your Facebook and your Instagram handles in the chat so people will be able to find you. And you said you also wanted to put your phone number in.
Yes. You want me to do it or?
Sure, you can do it.
Okay, I'll put it right here. 202-656-5047. And there that goes. All right.
So, how can people, if there's somebody who is really liking what you're saying and they say, I want to be a part of this, do they just call that phone number? How can they get in touch with you and how can they get be a part of what you're doing?
So, yes, you can contact me on those social media platforms. You can contact my number directly. Both of those social media platforms have a link that gives a bit more information and also um, a link to set a consultation meeting with me one-on-one. So that would
Okay.
be calendly.com/J, first letter initial, and my last name Kolenky. So you can actually set up a Zoom meeting with me one-on-one, and I can touch on either side, the education part or actually working with me, because we honestly need more boots on the ground, more soldiers that want to fight in this army, because a lot of work needs to be done in our community. I feel as though, um, when it comes to finance and just being properly educated. So, um, you can definitely reach out. Don't feel as though this might be over your head or it's super complicated. It's really not.
Well,
It's really
I'll
not.
tell you, when it comes to money, sometimes it does feel like it's over a person's head, and they're like, man, this just sounds like so much. It's so hard. I know, I was like that. I mean, I've always avoided the treasurer position in any organization that I'm in.
Right. Absolutely. If things go wrong, they looking at Dr. Rhonda like,
Yeah, don't look at me. Do not look at me.
absolutely. But I mean,
No.
you have to start though at some point. You have to start.
Hmm. No, you're absolutely right, especially if you're a business person, which brings me to my next question is are you looking for business people or are you looking for people who maybe want to start their own financial services business, or maybe just a regular person on the street who's not interested in starting a business but they want to get their finances in order? Who is your target audience?
Well, so any adult who, you know, any adult doesn't have a felony within the last 10 years, that's not me, that's the industry. Um, who wants to change their life. It could be part-time, it could be full-time. You can have absolutely no background in this, like I had none, but here I am now 3 years and some change later,
Mm-hmm.
um licensed in investments and life insurance, and I can show you how to do the same in a shorter period. If you're coachable, teachable, and trainable, that can happen. Um, or if you just want to learn finance so that you can make better decisions for you and your family, I'm more than happy to help. I think it's very powerful when you have somebody that looks like you from your community to share with you, sit you down, and
Absolutely.
go over things, because there's so much information. Like you said, it's overwhelming sometimes, but to have a have an educator communicate it to you how it works and make it simple. And that's why I wasn't going in much detail, because I didn't want to confuse anybody. you know I wanted to keep it simple. But if you want complicated, I can make it complicated. you
Well,
know
wait till these people call you so they can go ahead and get their financial services together, and then you can go ahead and get complicated with them.
that's it. I'll get complicated on the one-on-one and get specific, but for the general public, I just want to be general and let you know you have somebody that is here for you. And again, don't feel any type of way about it like I felt, like Dr. Rhonda just said she felt. But once you have that goal, and you're serious about it, then you can definitely reach out, and I'm here to help as much as I can.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Jay, I really appreciate you jumping on here with me today, um, and just
Absolutely.
talking a bit about what it is that you do. Because, like I said, there are a lot of people out there who are trying to get their finances together, but it just seems difficult. And so,
Yeah,
if you're somebody who can help them to navigate that really confusing world, then you're somebody that they need to meet. So I'm really glad that you came on here today.
absolutely. I'm glad you have this platform, not only for authors but for people to, just get on here and share some information, share some resources. It's much needed, and I definitely appreciate what you're doing for us.
Thank you so much. Well, you have a wonderful evening. Hopefully, we'll talk again soon. And best wishes on all you do.
Absolutely. Same to you. You
All
you
right.
have a good rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Bye bye. So that was Mr. Jay Kolenky. He is a financial expert, and he is ready to help those of you who are in the DMV, or maybe you're not in the DMV and you still want to reach out to him. He'd be able to point you in the right direction. So I did put his contact information in the chat if you are interested in reaching out and getting some more information about what he does. Now, um, before as we're waiting for our next guest to come on, I have got to share with you the awesomeness that was my European. Oh, let's start already. So I'm going to go ahead and show you this quick video. And then after the video, we are going to bring on our next guest, Dr. Velma, because she is ready. I saw her. And I am bringing you greetings from Paris, France. So I am having a good time. I do miss you guys, but I don't miss being home right now because I really needed this time to just relax and reconnect and recharge. And that's exactly what I'm doing this week while I'm in Paris. I'll be heading to London in a few days. But some of the things I'm going to be doing is connecting with books and readers and writers who are out here in Europe. Okay, so since they're closed, I'm just going to walk back because on the way here we did pass Notre Dame and some other nice places. So I'm just gonna take a nice stroll back. Wasted my Uber money. Glad it wasn't expensive. So I thought I'd check in with you guys. I'm really enjoying myself on my vacation, but I have to admit to you that there are much more beautiful cities than Paris. In fact, there are a lot of cities that you may not have even heard of that are way prettier than Paris. However, it's always good to come back to Paris because there's just a vibe in this city that is unmatched by a lot of other cities. All right, so that was my trip to Paris. So now I'm going to bring on Dr. Velma Bagby. Yay!
So glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you. How are you tonight?
I am good. I'm good. Thank you.
Now, I have got to tell you, because you actually hired me to put together your one sheet, and I'm looking at the titles of your books, and I was looking at the titles of the speaking topics. I'm like, this is a lady I need to know.
Really?
I mean, I just enjoyed the topics, and you have them behind you. The wrong catch, the catch nobody wants, and so you've got to tell me about this. What in the world is going on now? Before you even say anything, you have been married how many years?
49.
49 years. So that tells me that you are not just somebody who woke up and said, I'm going to be a relationship expert. You have
No.
actually lived this life.
No, that's correct. I lived the life, and believe me, it wasn't my idea. I just feel like it was my calling. I felt like God was telling me, why did I bless you with 49? Now share what you know.
Yes, yes.
And that's the reason, because I met been married 5 years and now a certified dating and relationship coach. And I'm going, what can you tell me? You haven't been in the trenches
They've been married
long enough.
5 years and they can tell everybody everything, right?
Yes.
Now you know full well we have people who have written one book and all of a sudden they're doing writers' workshops and they have publishing companies.
You're right. You're right. It's important to look at the credits and the credibility.
Yes,
that's for
yes.
sure.
Well, I will tell you, anybody who has been blessed to have been married 49 years, you absolutely have a story to tell, and you have lessons that you can share. So that's why I was really excited to have you on the show.
Oh.
And then as I'm reading your titles, I'm seeing that don't get me wrong, sometimes when a person's been married that long, the lessons that they want to share, the younger generation doesn't want to hear because they're going to say something like, "Oh, that's how it was back then," but it's different now. But just judging from your titles, I feel like you're able to connect with people on their level. So I'm just going to be quiet now. Tell me about your cat series.
Well, first of all, I set out to write one novel. Just one, and that was the Black book.
15 books ago.
Well, I guess, the first one was my very first book I wrote after retirement. Of course, when you're retiring, you're planning to retire. Yes. And it was not my plan to start writing books, but it was my two oldest daughters who said, "Mom, you really need to write about what we've talked about concerning men," because they asked questions. It was a season, I guess. My oldest daughter had won a divorce, and my youngest daughter was getting ready to go off to college, and we just started having these in-depth conversations. And so they encouraged me, I should say, to write the book because they were telling their friends all about what we were talking about. Because to be honest with you, Rhonda, I knew that if I was going to really communicate to my two daughters, who are both registered nurses, I better know what I'm talking about. in terms of what scripture says, in terms of what I learned, what I experienced, because they lived with us. They knew, they know, they knew the storms, they knew how we calmed the storm, all of that. They knew. So I wanted to present it in a way that it spoke to them, and it did. And so they encouraged me to write that first one. But I was taught as a believer to write nonfiction because there's a lot of people in the Christian community who do not warm up to fiction. But I discovered that the Bible has both nonfiction and fiction in it. Matter of fact, Jesus used parables are fictional stories. Jesus used them all the time, and he purposely did it because he didn't want to intimidate anyone. He didn't want anybody to feel bad about what he wanted to present to them. He presented a story and allowed them to see themselves in the story. In the story, he provided a way for them to change or correct whatever it was they were dealing with. But at the end of the story or parable, he always left it up to the individual to make a decision. And that's the way we should be. I wanted my books to speak to wherever that person was in their walk in life. I didn't want them to have to be presented with a scripture that would hit them upside the head and say, you need to do it like this. No, I wanted to present my stories like the parable. And for some reason, the fish fell on my heart. So I talked to my brother, who's the expert in fishing. And I said, tell me, what are your favorite fish? And the minute he started telling me about his fish, he told me about their behavior, how to catch them, their personality. The catfish was the first one. I said, oh my gosh, I know exactly the man for this character. Then he told me about the sturgeon. I knew exactly what character the sturgeon would become. And then on and on. And that's how the story evolved. But what happened as it hit, so many readers said, you've got to write more fish analogies because this is just phenomenal. I love it. Interviewers, I met all of these guys. I'm surprised about how you presented it. And I wish I had this book several years ago. You know,
guys were saying this?
The readers.
Okay.
But guys have read it also. So I'll tell you a little something that's coming up based on what the guys have told me about the book.
Okay.
But all the readers, they just encouraged me to write another book. And that's what I did. But my editor, during the process, she kept pulling out my scriptures. I said, I'm sorry, I'm an ordained minister too. So I get used to putting scriptures in there in case somebody wants. No, take it out, it's fiction. So God, where am I putting all this? What if at the end of the story, the father is the one that rescues his daughter who decides she wants to be married by 32. So she's rushing through guys very quickly. That's who becomes those stories. The father decides to take those bad examples of the guys she attempted to date and create stories around the fish because he's an expert in fishing. So he takes her on the trip to help to do some kind of intervention. And that's how the stories evolve. But at the end of all of it, he then gives her what's called a homework basket. He says, look, stop focusing so much on a husband. He said, if he walked into your life today, are you even ready? And believe me, out of my years of counseling, pre-counseling, marriage counseling sessions and talking to singles, most of them are not. Even though they want to be married, they're not ready. And so at the end, he gives her a homework basket of all kinds of tools and scriptures for her to study. Until she was done with that, he told her not to talk to anybody, don't think about a husband. And so that's how the second book was created. It's nonfiction. So it's the study guide for those who want the scripture, for those who want to know, because that's where I talk about the fools. I said, you know what? Why would God give us over 50 scriptures that describes fools? I said, had you thought about the fact that maybe he doesn't want you to be one, doesn't want you to date one, and he definitely does not want you to marry one. And he gives you the list of their characteristics. And so I include some of those in the homework basket, but I'm in the process now of creating a card game just around those fool scriptures.
Okay, now you're going too far. You're making a card game. I won't even be playing cards. I'm just going to be reading the cards.
No, don't do that. Have some fun. Get a group of people together and have some fun.
I think that this is so needed because, I mean, I can just tell you from my experience, there are certain behaviors that if we don't check when we're younger, they just manifest even as we're older. And it's not something, some people think, okay, you didn't grow out of that. No, I didn't. I'm not going to grow out of something if I haven't been taught how to overcome it.
That's right.
So I think that this is something that's really valuable for not just young daters, but for older
Absolutely.
daters as well.
Well, when I looked at my inside statistics, the majority of the people that were following and reading this book are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. They're not the 25s and the 30s. I said, but I was really surprised at that. I did have a few numbers there, but the majority of them are those that are seasoned and said, okay, let me just get this right. I met quite a few people who said, you know, I divorced that catfish and now I'm just going to wait and work on myself so I can meet the right one. Because in the book, it's the goldfish. And the story goes that the girl had been missing out on this guy all her life. He had been around her, but she had this idea. And this is what get a lot of women into trouble. They have this idea of what he should look like and what he should do and what he should have and what he should accomplish. And sometimes I ask, well, look at your list and tell me how many of those things on your list you fit. Because would you marry you? And many times it's a no. And so be careful of the list because you have already ruled out a lot of great guys because you have your mindset on what he should look like, what he should be doing. And in the story, she just discounted this guy because he worked with his father in construction. So it was his occupation that turned her away from him. She had no idea that he was a great investor. And when they finally went out on a date, he had her picked up with a limo, and the limo pulled up in front of a multi-million-dollar home that he paid cash for.
Okay, so I will say this because I truly believe that can happen. But what about the people who will say, okay, well, I'm just going to date, even if the person is not rich, I'm going to date this person because you never know, and you know he might do something, but then you find out that the person's only a dreamer, that they're not making it happen. So I guess that for me, I think that's the value of
you have to
communication.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to learn how to ask the hard questions. I put a lot of questions in there. One of the biggest mistakes we make is we spend so much time with a person without asking hard questions early on, because you can save yourself a lot of time. He may not be the one if you ask the right questions, but if you're spending years with them and you never ask specific questions that would get you to what you need to know, then you've wasted your time already. I remember meeting a young woman who just blurted out, "Oh man, this is my boyfriend. We've been married. We've been dating for 5 years." I'm going, 5 years is too long. You have to ask the right question that will get you to where you need to be and what you need to know about him. That will tell you if you're going to continue to explore and get to know him. And that's the other thing that's the biggest mistake is we fall in love with the idea of a man being a possible mate, and you have not taken the time to really examine. I call them conditions versus characteristics. Conditions are what you see on the outside, the packaging, what he looks like, what he might have. Those are all conditions. When I married my husband, I was working well on my career and I was making more money than him. And I said, if the condition was that he needs to make more than me, I would have ruled him out. But within 5 years of our marriage, he left me in his dust and has been making more money than me ever since. So, right. And so that's what I'm saying. As long as you know that those credible things are there in his characteristics, who cares about the conditions? Because again, it can flip any time.
That's a huge one, because I see it now, especially and social media has really, I think, ruined the dating pool. Yeah. Because we're all trying to date basically the same person. Everybody can't date the same person. You know, they want them to make 6 figures. But I'm gonna tell you, I make 6 figures. And if you don't make in the upper 6 figures, I'm talking about the way upper 6 figures. Yeah. It doesn't mean anything depending on where you live.
Right.
So, so yeah, it's easy to say he's got to make 6 figures. He's got to be 6 feet tall. Well, he's got to be this and this and this. But
before I knew better, I had on my list, because we were encouraged to write our husband to be prayer list is what they called them. I had 6 feet because everybody at the time in high school were basketball players, and we were the number 1 team in the area. I put that on my list. Then I put down bowed legs were popular back then.
Why did I just tell my daughter about that this morning? Yes. I said, I was looking at my daughter and said, you're actually kind of knock-kneed. And I said, when I was in high school, we used to think that a guy with bow legs was sexy. And I can't tell you why.
Yeah, we did. It was that walk. Look at Denzel. Look at Denzel. So we were talking about that, and I remember making a presentation about it, and I described my husband. I said, okay. I said 6 feet. I said, God has a sense of humor. And this is the other thing. I said, always keep God in the process. I said, because he won't steer you wrong. And sometimes he'll have someone for you that you might go, oh, God, are you sure? I asked for 6 feet. He's 5'8", because I'm only 5'5". Then I asked for bowed legs, and he's got slewed feet. Sometimes when we're just praying together and I'm holding his hand and looking down, I'm going, oh, God, you got a good sense of humor. I didn't ask for no slewed feet. So those are kind of the things we get caught up on, and we miss out on a perfectly good opportunity because we have ruled it out based on this list that we create for ourselves.
Can I make an admission here? I've never told anybody this. When I was in high school, my checklist included he had to have a Jerry curl.
Well, let me tell you, I told my husband when we marched down the aisle, I said, you have this beautiful big afro. I enjoyed braiding it up at night. And I did a workshop on this last year in North Carolina, and they asked me to come back. So I'm going back, Lord willing, in October to present this workshop. Let's go fishing for the right catch is what it was called. And I told them about conditions versus characteristics. I said, now, Elvis was in the building when we marched down the aisle. Big fro. I said, Elvis has left the building now. That afro is gone. What if that was a condition? What if I said, you must keep that afro because that's one of my favorite features. It's gone.
Well, I remember there was this boy when I was in high school. He had this long Jerry curl. We thought he was so cute. And then he decided to cut his hair off. And we saw how big his head really was.
Take it off your list. That's the hilarious thing. If we're honest about, it's not all about not finding someone. It really is about your perspective, and it's also about where you are. What's your heart like? Because sometimes you got to spend some time to do some decluttering, because what's in your heart will cause you to attract the type of men you're attracting. So if you're attracting the wrong ones, then what's in your heart? Examine where you are. Have you brought along in your life all the past mistakes, all the past errors, all the past bad relationships? That sits in your heart. So how can the right guy come along and your heart is already occupied with all that stuff? You will filter the good guy or the perfect match for you through what you have been through. And why would you want to do that? My grandmother used to say, God would not give you a broken glass to cut your lip.
Ooh.
So if you got all this stuff in you, you're getting ready to filter him through, and you might have something perfect in front of you, but because you're broken, you're going to cut that man up. And before you know it, what started off as something good is no longer going to remain good.
Yes. So now I put on the screen, what fish have you dated? What are some fish that and I know this is probably dedicated more toward women, but I'm thinking that there probably are some men who can get something out of this as well.
Oh, yeah. The men are getting something out of it because they've already asked me to also write one about the women. I'll tell you about that in just a minute. But in the Black Book, we have the catfish who loves garbage. So, if you're attracting that kind of, he's a bottom feeder. Catfish are bottom feeders. They love smelly things. So the heart that's not sure of herself is smelly. The heart that doesn't have doesn't have self-worth, doesn't feel good about herself, no good self-esteem, her self-esteem is poor. She might be very smelly in her heart, and a catfish will smell that in a moment. That's the reason she attracts the wrong kind of guy. Then there's the sturgeon who likes to nibble. And that's all he wants to do. He nibbles everywhere he goes. And the example I gave is he's actually a minister that the church sends from place to place. And I gave that example because I remember growing up watching someone in our ministry that I was growing up in, and I saw this guy. His character was just like the sturgeon I talk about in the book, who nibbled everywhere. If the church would send him out to different places, he was nibbling at whatever town he was in. Then there's the salmon. He fights getting caught. And if somebody is already making it clear to you they are not committing, because that's what we're looking for in those early conversations, something that says this person is committed to whatever he decides he's committed to. Well, the salmon makes it clear he's not going to commit. And I don't care if you have children with him or not. He says he's not committing, and he won't. That's the salmon. So we have the salmon, the sturgeon, the catfish, and the last one is the pufferfish. The pufferfish is described as a fish that has human-like eyes, very captivating and calm, and just draws you in, but agitate him. He puffs up 3 times his size, and he has these points coming out of his body that's very poisonous. So that's an example of your toxic relationship. I have a friend that gave a book to a girl that she knew that was in a relationship. She and the other friends could not talk her out of it. And then finally, she gave her my book. She read that last chapter about the pufferfish, and that's when she got out of it. She was able to see herself in the story, just like what I described to you early on. The last fish is the goldfish, and that's your goal. I have my cup back here that says, every runner does not run for the bronze or the silver. They run for the gold. So go for the gold.
I like it.
Just go for the goal. And so the goldfish is the one that she finds finally after she puts in the work that her father encourages her to put in. And then she discovers the guy that had been in her life all of her life, because her father and the guy's father are best friends. So the second book is the study guide, which is nonfiction. The first book is Christian contemporary fiction. And this one, the third book, was just released in April, The Wrong Catch, has 4 more stories that talks about a group of fish that's called the trophy fish. The trophy fish is considered the elite of all the fish, because these are the fish that are used in tournaments, multi-million-dollar tournaments. They're massive and strong. It says that if a person fishing for one actually wins the fight and catches one, then they get the bragging rights, because these fish will fly up out of the water fighting to get that hook out of its mouth. They're strong. Sometimes they'll tire out the person trying to catch them. But in this story, these fish are the type of men who want to be the center of attention all the time. And we hear that a lot in the case of those who are narcissistic. And so many of those characters in the stories, that's who they are. You are like an extra in the movie with them. Anybody in their inner circle are like extras in the movie, as long as they are the center of attention. Wow. There's 2 guys called the bass, which are the ones that they use in the tournament. They're number 1. The other 2 are called the pikefish, and they're twins. And they take twinning to a whole new level, because the women who date them are thinking they're only dating one guy. But these identical twins, they're dating both of them, and they don't know it. All because we ignore the signs. We ignore the flags. We just discount them. And the first time that one of the fish in that story he's an NFL football player, and he takes his date out, and he tells her before they get out of the limo, he says, now, once we get out, I need you to be quiet and let me do all the talking. So he pretty much told her, shut up. Right. And once the date is over, we can talk again. You can talk again. And that's exactly what she had to do for several dates, until she realized that was a red flag in the beginning, but she didn't do anything. She just went on with the program until finally he decides he wants to dress her. So he sends a designer to her house. He sends a makeup artist to her house. He sends someone to prepare her house and so her hair. So now he wants to tell her how to look. And that's when she begins to draw the line. And so these are narcissistic guys, but it shows how women still get captivated and drawn into their lives without realizing it, because they're ignoring the flags again, the red flags again.
Now, you said that these books are, I guess, they're a mixture of fiction and nonfiction now?
The Catch series are predominantly, the novels are contemporary fiction. The only one that's a nonfiction is that white one. I just needed to know where to put all my notes. Scripture references for people who wanted it.
Now, see, I like the fact that you've made these nonfiction, because I think it makes it a little less threatening for people. They can see themselves without feeling preached at.
Absolutely. That's exactly the point, which is why I think Jesus wrote so many parables. You know, that was the whole idea. He wasn't talking to church folks at the time. He was talking to people out on the street, just telling them stories. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so that was really my goal. How do I write it in a way that would make people comfortable, to whether you're familiar with scripture or not? It didn't matter. If you read a story that talked about a fish, it would draw you in because you would want to know more about that fish. And the women in the story didn't fare very well in some of these relationships too. So it shows you what can happen. And so that was important to me to be able to do.
I cannot believe that it is now 7:57. Well, you're in California, aren't you?
Yes.
Goodness. So it's still nice in daytime where you are.
Oh yeah, the light's still out.
I mean, it's still light here too, but it's about to be dark soon.
Yeah. Well, we had a good talk. That's all that matters.
No, we had a very good talk. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm really excited about this series. And believe it or not, before I met you, I had met someone who was talking about you. So I just thought it was really cool how it all came together. And they were talking about the Catch series and about how you were a relationship expert. And I was like, wow, I guess it was meant for me to meet Dr. Velma.
Several times we crossed paths. Absolutely. Well, I love what you did with the one sheet. It's just fabulous.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad you liked it.
So book number 4 coming out in the fall.
There's a book 4. Okay.
Yes. Book number 4 is called The Wrong Catch. She'll Tear Down the House.
Ooh.
This one's about the women. I won't be using fish, but I can tell you a few of them. I got the Black Widow. I have the Queen Bee. You're going to I'm going to introduce you to the hyena, because it's not laughter. The sound that you hear is not laughter. She's barking orders.
Yes.
And so there's plenty of other, but I'm not going to tell you anymore, but that's just a peek. And what's going to happen.
Dr. Velma, I'm going to have you back on the show, because I'm planning on doing a show that's going to be dedicated to the game of love. So I really need to have you back on the show when we have that panel discussion. I don't know if you saw my panel discussion a couple months ago where we talked about colorism.
Yes.
Oh, awesome. So we're going to be doing another one, and we're going to be talking about the game of love. And I really would love to have you as one of the panelists.
Well, that's another thing that happens when we make up our mind that we only want one kind of man. And I encourage my daughters, don't do that. Open up your heart to who God wants, because you don't know who can match you. Yes. And sure enough, my little son-in-law is 10 years old. I'm sorry, 10 years. They've been married 10 years, he and my oldest daughter. And my little grandkids are just beautiful Black and Filipino people. I love them to death. So when she opened up her heart, did I lose you? It went black all of a sudden when she opened up her heart.
I'm listening to you. I see you.
He discovered, one of the things I said is his eyes will remain closed until the right one comes. And I confirmed with my husband, I said, isn't true that a man knows the minute he meets you? He said, yeah, they know. They know if you're the one. They may take their time to get to know you more and all of that, but they know. And so they found out. My
boyfriend told me.
Yeah, they found out they were in high school together and never noticed each other. It wasn't time.
Wow.
It was
That's amazing. Well, we have come to the end of the night, but once again, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. I'm really excited about your series, and I plan on reading all of the books. I want all of the books.
Thank you. I appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Thank you for
Well,
having me.
and thank you for being here. So I did put your website in the chat. Hope more people will reach out and experience this series. They may find themselves, or even the people whom they've dated, within these pages.
Yes. Yes.
So this is going to be a fun series to read, and I'm looking forward to diving in.
Thank you.
Congratulations on all you do. When is your 50th anniversary?
I'm planning that. I saw your reel about Paris. I said, okay, that's off the list. We're trying to figure out.
If you want to go to France, I will give you some places. You can hit France, but I'm gonna give you some other places to go.
Yeah, my daughter's trying to say Belize, and I don't know if that's what I want either. But we're trying to plan some kind of destination for our February 2024.
Awesome. That's not long from now.
No, it's not. That's why I'm trying to figure out the plan that we're going to have now so we can start working on it.
All right. Well, happy anniversary early.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. God bless you.
Take care.
You too. So, yeah, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of the Horizons Author Lounge. Let's help this show to grow, you guys. Please let your friends know, let your author friends know, and even your entrepreneur friends know about the show. Let's help it to grow. We want this to continue to be a service to people. For those of you who don't know, it is absolutely free to be on this show. We do have other packages if you want to build on your experience, which is what Dr. Velma did. But if you just want to be on the show remains free. We just want to be a service to authors and entrepreneurs and nonprofits throughout the country and help them to get the exposure that they deserve. So help us to make this show grow. Help us to make this show even more of a service to those out there who are grinding and trying to make their dreams come true. I want to be able to do that for you guys. So let's work together and make this happen. Help me help you. All right. But you guys have a wonderful evening. God bless you. Thanks once again for joining me. Thank you for your support to Dr. Velma. And I will see you next week with 2 more authors. All right. You have a great night. Bye-bye.